This is In Depth. It is a transition of power the likes we've never seen, because 2 weeks after you voted, there is no transition. President Donald Trump has not conceded. He's fighting a so far unsuccessful battle in the courts, calling the election a fraud and rigged. And he's not releasing the needed controls for President-elect Joe Biden's team to proceed. Joining me tonight is our guest analyst, Dr. Robert Dion, Associate Professor of Political Science at the University of Evansville. With the inauguration, Dr. Dion, about 2 months away, what impact is this having on how we perceive democracy in this country?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the transition is going to happen no matter what, and it may be delayed. But ultimately, the most damaging effects are on our allegiance to and our affiliation with democracy. Anytime a national leader undermines our democratic institutions in this way, I think there's lasting damage. I think we're going to take a long time to try to get past this really unpleasant episode.
And let's go into the nuts and bolts of all this. We're learning a lot about the General Services Administration and how much has to be done. This is not like checking in and checking out of a hotel. The transition to get into the White House by the president-elect and the outgoing president to leave.
Right, it's astonishing. Even under the best of circumstances, the most harmonious circumstances, the notion that you're going to pass off the leadership of this enormous national government for this huge country in a matter of weeks really is overwhelming to think of. But under these circumstances, where there's a lack of communication, I think we're losing time, and we're losing the ability to make sure that the new administration starts, right away on day one. Now, the good thing, for what it's worth, is out of all the people who understands the federal government, Joe Biden, who's been in Washington for 40-something years, doesn't really need a refresher course. But you have to remember that he's got hundreds of people who are joining him, some of whom are especially experienced, but not all of them. And some may be joining new agencies. And let's be honest, things have changed in the last 4 years, both domestically and abroad. And so these kind of briefings, agency level to director, are really essential. And one has to hope that in the next few days this will really be put to rest and we can get on with the transition.
Well, the whole world is watching. I'm borrowing a chant from Chicago in 1968. What is this doing to America's image abroad?
Well, it's not good. I think we've had some trouble over the last couple of years with our standing abroad, and it remains to be seen whether Joe Biden can make that better. But there seems to be a lot of desire for him to step in and sort of bring things back to a more traditional or a conventional policy. Certainly, Joe Biden was the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee for a long time, and he knows a lot of the leadership in the countries that are our allies. He even knows the challenges presented by those countries who are not our friends. So one has to think that that's a promising development. But boy, the world is a dangerous place right now. So the riskiest moment is when one president leaves and another president comes in, because there's often a desire to sort of test and poke and prod. And we want to make sure that our administration is as solid and as well briefed as it can be.
And let's talk about the politics of this. Of course, that Georgia runoff, that is so critical now, because conceivably the Democrats could gain control of the U.S. Senate, with the tiebreaker, of course, being Kamala Harris. But that Georgia runoff is turning like it's almost a national election, with the importance of it coming up in January.
It's going to be high drama, and I wish some people would settle down a little bit, because we don't know what's going to happen. It seems unlikely that the Democrats will win both. They might win one. They might lose both of them. And at the end of the day, we'll have a Senate that is very closely divided. It's either going to be 51 or 50 in the Republican caucus, and maybe 52 if all goes well for Mitch McConnell. And so it's going to be pitched battle, sort of like we've seen in recent years. So it's unfortunate that hundreds of millions of dollars are going to be spent over a special election in 2 Senate races in January. But gosh, the eyes of the nation are going to be on there. It's going to be a proxy battle. between the Trump crowd and the Biden crowd. And at the end of the day, everybody's going to be exhausted and poorer, and the Senate will be split down the middle.
Okay, we got a very brief time here, Dr. Dion. The impact on the pandemic, the president does not have to concede by law. It is tradition. But Joe Biden today said more people could die if he does not concede and do it in a pretty big hurry. How do you react to that?
Well, I'm not sure. It'd be nice if the president would concede. Every president before him has conceded when the person loses. But it's not an exaggeration to say that there are lives in the balance, especially in the last week or so. We've seen a real spike across the country, and those two administrations need to be working hand in glove with each other to make sure that we get that vaccine out as quickly as possible. Put the election behind us, put America ahead of us.
And we were talking earlier, it just seems like it was about 27 years ago, George H.W. Bush on Inauguration Day sent Bill Clinton a letter, and I'll just kind of capsulize this. The last words he said in that letter, "I'll be rooting for you." And times have indeed changed.
They sure have.
All right, Dr. Robert Dion, once again, thank you very much for joining us. Until the next time, take care and stay safe.